Hey everybody, welcome to episode 4 of the DM's Corner. As always, this episode is going to give you spoilers for episode 4, so if you'd rather not have those, stop watching now and come back after you see episode 4. Otherwise, if you want to see how I prepared for episode 4, you're in the right place. Alright, so episode 4, entitled Granny May. For those of you that are familiar with some D&D lore, you may have an idea that this episode, the big bad, is going to be a hag. In this case, it's going to be a green hag, so our players are going to be a CR level of 3. Now, in creating the hag, this was a little bit like the previous episode of a vampire. The combat abilities aren't as good as I'd like to see in some other things, but there are some other tricks we have up our sleeve. One of those is in Volo's Guide to Monsters, has a whole section on green hags. So for this one, I took straight from there. The green hag is going to have the weird magic that it suggests, and is going to be able to smash a mirror, and that will release a Cloud of Daggers spell. So that's one of the things I kind of added to make this fight a little more. There's minions that I've also added that I think will up the difficulty of these encounters, as well as a couple other tricks I've decided to throw in. For this episode, what I wanted to do is break down the fights a little bit more, because if you go into the Dungeon Master's Guide, it talks about having an adventuring day being 6 to 8 medium adventures. Or medium difficulty adventures. And if you have more hard ones, then that takes away the number down a little bit. So here we have one more fight. I've tried to spread out our CR and our XP daily totals a little bit more, but I've also added a trap in this one, and I did a multi-stage trap so that the players will not only have to deal with that, but then I want them to also deal with it in combat. So this should be a demonstration on how to make your traps and combats a little bit more complicated and giving the players multiple things to do. Now, hopefully I've designed it in a way that won't overwhelm them. So I'm actually going to introduce the trap by itself. Then I'm going to have them have a combat. Then the second combat is going to be the trap and combat. So they've already dealt with it before by the time they get to that point, but now they've got to deal with the enemies that are around as well. So let's pull up my notes. For this adventure, we also changed things a little bit too. We're not dealing with heroes. The player characters are actually, I told them, to be monstrous races. So for this, the players are going to start out, the adventure will start as a group of monsters that have just finished attacking a human caravan, and they're going to find a flyer for a missing girl. And then they're going to say, hey, let's go get that missing girl for ourselves and get ransom money for ourselves. And we'll see how they play with that. But that was the idea that I gave them as they created their characters. And as you can see here, I do not have the player characters loaded yet, so I do not know what they're playing. So we will find out. But the magic items I gave them to start with, at level 3, is I gave them... 2 of them are going to get an uncommon major magic item. 1 is going to get a rare minor. They are each going to get an uncommon minor. And then 2 of them are going to get common minor items. The magic item breakup for 1 to 5 makes level 3 a little difficult on how exactly to spread everything out, but that's what I decided to go with, and we'll see what happens. So the players are going to start, and then they're going to remember, after seeing this flyer, that they saw a girl matching the description on the flyer heading off into the woods by that place where the old lady lives in the swamp that none of them like to deal with, but the reward here is worth it, so they're going to give it a shot. I'm going to give them a non-combat encounter as they go. So our first scene they are going to see is going to be this right here. This actually came with some of the maps that I got so I'm using the artwork that goes with it to set these scenes. So around this figure, it's going to be a made figure of tree branches and sticks, and it's actually going to be a human leper colony. So I'm going to describe and see how these monstrous races deal with non-combat humans. If they go in and slaughter them, so be it. I'll look up the disease rules and give them some leprosy or some kind of disease that's appropriate that they're going to have to deal with. Otherwise, we'll hopefully RP them away, and it'll just be a opportunity for them to talk and introduce their characters. Then they are going to come upon the entrance to the actual swamp part. So here, I'm going to have the characters get in their first combat, and the hag in this case has set up her boundary with a variety of scarecrows. So as they approach these scarecrows, I'm going to give them the scene of this boat here, and then off the map there is a wooden walkway. The idea is the characters are going to want to try and go for the boat, but once they get to the boat, they're going to notice there's a hole in it, so they're not going to be able to use it. The scarecrows then, 2 of these are going to activate. I've put all of these on the map so that I don't have to pick right now which 2 are the ones that are actual constructs are going to activate. I can do that as the players position themselves on the map and make it for an exciting encounter. After they deal with the scarecrows, realize they can't do the boat, then I'm going to go into the water. And you can see here in my notes that I have talked about the water here. I don't want them to just be able to walk in the water or swim underneath or swim through it generally. I want them on this dock because that's where I've got my other maps and other stuff that they're going to have to deal with. So the swamp, if it were to just straight up cause damage, we would not have any plant life, and it would just be a dead mire of nothing in it. So I can't have the water be too caustic. But I can give them the idea that staying a long time in the water is not going to be conducive for their health. So I will let them know that they feel that if they stand in there for too long, they're going to start taking damage, and then mechanically, if they're in there for every minute they're in there, they're going to roll a d6 of poison damage. So hopefully that will give them the ability to use the water if they really need to, but not live in the water and skip everything I've planned. So that takes us to our first trap. So from here, I'm going to take us back to our other swamp scene here to give them an idea on kind of what they're looking at. And just this haze, this yellow haze that's coming off the water kind of contributes to the pollution and nastiness that's in this water. So I'll have them start walking along this dock, and then I'm going to have them do encounter this trap. So my notes on my trap here, and this is taken from a third-party material, which I'll go over at the end. But this is called the Drenching Pit. So it's a complex trap, and in order for the players to see it, they are going to have to first detect that it is there with a 20 perception check. If they reveal it's there, I don't want them to totally get away with it, but I will have them detect it right as they get to the edge and it's about to trip. So that will then give them, whoever's in front, a better opportunity to avoid this trap. So as the trapdoor, we go back to our trapdoor here. When it activates, the trapdoor falls, and this is going to be like a large pit that's been placed into the swamp, so it doesn't drop them directly into the swamp. Drops them in, and they're going to have to make a DC 20 dex save. If they have successfully detected it, I will give them advantage on that roll. Once they go inside, they're going to be able to catch themselves on the side. If they don't, they fall all the way to the bottom. So again, here, traps, if you don't do it right, your players can skip your entire traps. So for this, the only way the players are going to completely avoid this trap is if, 1, they detect it, and 2, they come up with something else. Because here's what's going to happen is if they're successful. If they're successful in detecting it, and they roll above a 20 on the saving throw, they will catch themselves on the side and not fall to the bottom and take the falling damage. But instead, they're going to catch themselves, and then the door is going to close and the bolts are going to lock in place. So the players still have to deal with it. And I'm going to give the player an opportunity to look around, or whoever's trapped inside, to see. So that's our setup. So they are going to deal with this. Then once they're inside, water starts to fill the pit. The players up top are going to have to figure out, either with thieves' tools or brute force, on how to destroy this trap door that's at the top. And then the player inside has the opportunity to look around and see there's 4 spouts that's filling this water. The water's going to rise at 5 feet per round. So they can either try and damage the 4 spouts coming out, they can try and stuff something in the spouts coming out, or they can work to counteract at the top as well if they've made the save to hold up there. So that gives them an idea on how this trap is going to work, and eventually get out, and hopefully they don't die. But once they solve that, then we will have them continue along, and they're probably going to be a lot more cautious at this point. Once they're cautious, now I'm going to throw some monsters at them. So I'm going to have them fight our first encounter here with... Pull up our swamp bridge. So here our players are going to be coming from south to north, and depending on their role is how far up the map they're going to get. So you can see this is different. I'm not going to trigger this the first round. All they're going to have to deal with is they're going to see this wooden woman, which is going to be a dryad, is going to rise up out of the water and start coming at them. For this, it's a hag who has this dryad charmed under her spell, so the dryad is one of the defenses. Same with a blink dog here. They're just going to see a dog until, poof, it disappears, appears on the bridge, and attacks them. And then right over here, I've got my pixie hidden. The pixie is, unless they roll pretty much a crit, they're not going to see this pixie over here. All their attention is going to be to the north. Pixie's going to come out during combat with polymorph and start turning people into random animals, which is always a hoot, and they're going to have to deal with that. Once they deal with those 3, they'll then continue on. So for our next one, I'm actually going to use the same map, and they're going to be coming up here, and here they're going to start right where our trap is. So our trap, and actually, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, if I have that there, that's going to give too much away that they're going to know what's coming. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hide this and just have them deal with an out section of the bridge. And actually, I can just leave that there. Then when I come in for the second map, I can add this back in as the trap door closes. That's what we're going to do. And so I've got my token here for my Drenching Pit on how these activate at 10 and 20 in the combat. So we've got those there, and talking through this, you come up with these ideas, so I'm glad I did that. As the second round comes, I've got my next monsters staged here. So here we've got some elementals that the hag has either conjured into her service or charmed into her service. I like these guys, the Mephits, because they can fly, and when they die, they explode and damage things nearby. And then we'll have a good fire snake here that's going to come up. And you know what? I was thinking that it wouldn't do much damage to the dock, but I think it'd be more fun if the fire snake crawls out of the water and starts setting fire to the dock. And so then they have to deal with that as well. So those are the bad guys that are going to be there, and the trap they're going to have to deal with the next time they do this. So ideally, from a DM's perspective, one character is going to be trapped in the pit, one character is going to be up top trying to help them, and then the other 2 are going to have to stave off the enemies that are coming around. Moving on. That gets us to our next encounter. So all of these have been medium up to this point, probably going to be technically a little bit more since they're dealing with the trap on the second one, but pure XP based is going to be just medium difficulty. So now our first hard encounter. This is going to be, I want to give the characters a short rest opportunity between these 2 points. So say there's kind of this oasis or something in the bridge, in the swamp, where they can take a little rest, see it's safe, get some of their stuff back. Then go into the house, or into the final battle. And here I don't want them fighting the green hag at full strength, so I've got to bring them down a little bit. So there's going to be one more set of guards, which is going to come back to this map here. And so from here, they're going to be coming from north to south, and I'm going to say the bridge is out. So here I'm going to force them into the water, so they all have to take at least 1d6 of poison damage to get to the shore. And here I have staged the next one. It's going to be 2 blink dogs and a regular, what is that? Oh, that's actually a shadow mastiff. So there's going to be 3 dogs hanging out down here that they're going to have to deal with in the fog. And then that is finally going to bring them to the Hag's lair, which is going to be in a tree stump. And one of my players, Chuck, is starting to get into maps, and he made me this map, so I am happy to use it and figure out what we're going to do in here. So for our final battle, they're going to come in and check out, and this place is going to be disgusting. Green hags are gross. There's this green mold growing all over the floor. There's some kind of ritual circle in the middle with blood. There's a cauldron, random weird plants rolling around. And I'm going to have my hag here. She is going to start out under a spell looking very pretty and nice, and then lure the characters hopefully inside, which may or may not work since they're monsters, but we'll see. But then our Shadow Mastiff is going to be hiding in the shadows here so that we can get a good flank going on. And then the hag will stay until it's time to go. Hags generally are not going to fight to the death. Based on that Volo's guide, they will fight until they realize it's a losing fight, and then they're going to get out of there. With this and the special series we're doing on fighting to the death, I'm going to have the hag go all the way to 0. She might try and fake an escape so that we can play out how that would happen in an actual campaign where you're doing something long-term or one-shot. But in this, if she gets to 0, she's going to come back, as has been happening in some of our previous adventures, and we'll continue on. Maybe summon up a few more of these Shadow Mastiffs. There's not a whole lot the players are going to have access to at level 3, so it's not going to be too big of a deal. I hopefully won't have to stretch it too much, but we'll see how that goes. So, that is my plan for Episode 4, CR Level 3. I'm thinking the players are going to beat me on this one. I think that trap will depend a lot on how they deal with that, but yeah, I'm thinking the players are going to beat me, but we'll see. We'll talk about it on Too Long Didn't Watch afterwards, and on our post-show with the Second Shot adventure afterwards. Thanks for watching. Any suggestions on how you've played Hags, throw any comments at the bottom, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.